Don't play victim to the circumstances you created. A meme. Over the last few months, many mainstream media outlets have been reporting on the migrant crisis at the southern U.S. border and the U.S. government response to it. While much has been said about the crisis, most of the conversation has surrounded special interest agendas rather than focus on the facts of the issue itself. Now you might ask, DDJ, as a man going my own way, why should this be important to me? Well, in my opinion, the primary reason you should care is because feminists and social justice warriors are the main supporters and promoters of mass illegal immigration into the United States and elsewhere. For example, both Sweden's and Canada's feminist governments have been providing confirmed terrorists with material support, sanctuary, and protection from prosecution within their borders. In fact, much of the mainstream media reclassifies any opposition to Middle Eastern or African terrorism as Islamophobia or hate speech. This has been well reported throughout the mainstream media. Why the U.S. government hasn't questioned either country's state sponsorship of terrorism is beyond me. Additionally, many U.S. men going their own way pay taxes. Too many government-funded colleges, local governments, and government agencies are using tax dollars to protect and support illegal immigration, as well as to protect those who legally enter the United States from accountability for the crimes they commit while on U.S. soil. With that said, regardless of whether or not you're male, female, progressive, or conservative, this is an issue that affects all American citizens and any country that relies on the United States for support. So with that out of the way, let's dive in. The United States Citizenship and Immigration Services defines the term refugee as follows. Under United States law, a refugee is someone who is located outside the United States, is in special humanitarian concern to the United States, demonstrates that they were persecuted or fear of persecution due to race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership to a particular social group, is not firmly resettled in another country, and is admissible to the United States. The Department of Homeland Security compiles data on how many individuals are granted asylum by country annually. They report that of the nearly 85,000 refugee applications received in 2016, only 3,026 applications from Central America were granted asylum. This number doesn't just include the principal applicants, but also includes dependents such as spouses and children as well. The breakdown is as follows. El Salvador, 1,014.04. Guatemala, 1,317. Honduras, 885. And Nicaragua, 20. The most recent migrant caravan from Honduras, which commenced on or about March 25, 2018, and organized by Pueblos Sin Fronteras, or People Without Borders, traveled from the Honduran capital to Tijuana, Mexico, a trip of just over 2,790 miles by the most direct route. The trip itself is extremely dangerous for the migrants seeking to enter the United States. In August 2010, CNN reported that the bodies of 58 migrant men and 14 migrant women were found on a Mexican ranch near the border of Texas. They were from Honduras, El Salvador, Brazil, and Ecuador. A month earlier, 51 other bodies were discovered in mass graves. This time, the victims were mostly males between 20 and 50. The Guardian reported in their October 5, 2017 article, Riding the Beast, Child Migrants Reveal the Full Horror of Their Journeys to America. 80% of the women and girls who cross Mexico to get to the U.S. border are raped on the way. The situation is so common that most of them take contraceptive precautions as they begin the journey north. The National Human Rights Commission in Mexico published a special report on immigrant abductions and kidnappings, revealing that the number of abduction victims between April and September of 2010, a period of just 6 months, was 11,333. Though it's impossible to establish an actual number, some sources estimate that since 2006, around 120,000 migrants have disappeared in their transit through Mexico. In addition, in July 2014, the Huffington Post reports in their article, "Migrants ride a train of death to get to America, and we're ignoring the root of the problem." Murders, muggings, extortion, gang rapes of women, and kidnappings, some 20,000 a year, are committed by the rapidly expanding Central American MS-13 gangs, or by Mexican drug traffickers such as the bloodthirsty Zetas. They often infiltrate groups of traveling migrants on the trains or in shelters, selling them drugs, tricking girls into prostitution, luring boys into gangs, or murdering perceived informers. At each stop, the migrants are prey to local police, who demand bribes up to several $100s a head in exchange for allowing them to continue on their way. Human despair has been turned into a commodity, a flourishing business for illicit enrichment. Coyotes and polleros, literally chicken herders, charge upwards of $5,000 per migrant to shepherd him or her across the U.S. border. Smugglers have been spreading false rumors about lenient U.S. policies to drum up business for themselves, convincing parents that after their children turn themselves into the Border Patrol, they will be allowed to remain in the country if they can furnish the name of a relative already in the United States. Then, once the migrants get to the U.S. border, they're often stalled and held up in Tijuana. On April 28, 2018, Breitbart, Texas reports, the migrant caravan of people who are allegedly fleeing violence in their home countries is now camped out in the murder-ridden city of Tijuana, Mexico. The Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen warned the members and organizers of the migrant caravan that people who enter illegally, make false immigration claims, or assist or coach someone on how to make a false immigration claim will be prosecuted. The U.S.-based group Pueblos Sin Fronteras, an organizer of the migrant caravan, said they are bringing in lawyers to quote-unquote speak with migrants before they decide on if, when, and where to cross the border. This could possibly be the type of coaching Secretary Nielsen referred to. Tristan Call, a volunteer with Pueblos Sin Fronteras, acknowledged the dangers faced by migrants along their journey. To reiterate, the migrant trip to the southern U.S. border is extremely dangerous. One of the main reasons for this is because the migrants often fall victim to MS-13 and other gangs. MS-13 is a very dangerous international gang that started in Los Angeles in the 1980s, and many members are from Central America and are spreading across North America. Fox News reported on March 28, 2016, a 5-week operation led to the arrest of 1,133 people, including more than 900 suspected members of multinational organized criminal gangs, the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, said Monday. What we're seeing is that the gangs are becoming a little bit more organized as gang members enter the United States, whether it's legally or illegally, and they're doing a wide variety of recruiting, said Peter Edge from Homeland Security Investigations. 915 of those arrested are believed to be members or associates of MS-13, Sureños, Norteños, Bloods, and other prison-based gangs. Further, another major concern mentioned earlier is that MS-13 was both concealing themselves in migrant travel groups and recruiting from within these groups. Many of these MS-13 gang members are legally entering the United States as unaccompanied minors. The Western Journal reports on April 3, 2018, nearly 100 members of the notoriously violent MS-13 street gang were among the young immigrants admitted into the United States under the classification of quote-unquote unaccompanied minor during the past 11 months, according to recent government data. On February 21, 2018, the Center of Immigration Studies Director of Policy Studies, Jessica M. Vaughn, released a report entitled MS-13 Resurgence, Immigrant Enforcement Needed to Take Back Our Streets. Mrs. Vaughn is a former Foreign Service officer in the U.S. State Department, and she's written for the Washington Post, the New York Times, the National Review, Boston Globe, The Economist, the San Francisco Chronicle, and many other publications. She's also appeared on NPR, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, and has testified before Congress several times. Here's the key findings of the Center of Immigration Studies report. We found 506 of the MS-13 members arrested or charged with crimes that were reported in 22 states. The most cases were reported in California, 92, Maryland, 85, New York, 80, and Virginia, 63. MS-13 crimes are not primarily petty nuisance crimes. 207 MS-13 members were charged with murder. In addition, we found that more than 100 accused of conspiracy racketeering and dozens of others for drug trafficking, sex trafficking, attempted murder, sexual assaults, and extortion. While most of the reports of MS-13 suspects in our case set did not include information on the immigration status of the individual, we could determine that 126 of the 506 suspects and 38 of the 207 murder suspects were illegal aliens. The median age of MS-13 gang members identified was 23, and suspects ranged in age between 14 to 57. The median age of their victim was 19. The victims ranged in age from 14 to 74. 60 of the victims were under the age of 18, including 52 of the murder victims. 120 of the 506 MS-13 suspects in our case set arrived as UACs, or unaccompanied alien children, including 48 of the murder suspects. The location of these MS-13 crimes corresponds with locations of large numbers of UACs who were resettled by the federal government. Even worse, the migrant caravan discussed earlier had at least one MS-13 gang member traveling with the group. Newsweek reports on April 12, 2018, the gang member had crossed into the United States with a group of about 60 other migrants believed to be a part of the migrant caravan that President Donald Trump has focused on over the last several weeks. The young gang member had pretended to be an unaccompanied minor, but police later ascertained that he is an adult who is affiliated with the infamous cross-border criminal group. So, to recap, we know illegal human smugglers are spreading lies that U.S. immigration policy is very lenient to increase their profits, as well as to inspire innocent people to leave the safety of their home country and to make the dangerous trip to the U.S. border. Not only is the trip itself long and harsh, but it serves to isolate these innocent men, women, and children so that criminal gangs can rape, rob, and murder them at will. So who are these smugglers? Well, one group is an organization called Pueblos Sin Fronteras, or People Without Borders. Their website and prominent members admit that they've been smuggling migrants to the U.S. border for the last 15 years under the pretense of activism. The most recent caravan embedded a CNN reporter, Leila Santiago, who traveled with migrants from southern Mexico to the U.S. border. Her video is completely damning. The link is in the description. However, because I'm concerned about a copyright claim, I won't be showing the footage, but you should watch it anyway. It demonstrates the migrant caravan is being transported across Mexico on high-end charter buses. They even have their own armed security detail. So not only are these innocent people being lied to about their chances of entry into the United States by smugglers like People Without Borders, but these smugglers are providing them with food, shelter, transportation, and everything they need. Then CNN takes pictures to make it appear as though these migrants are walking. This caravan is nothing but a photo op to push illegal immigration propaganda at the expense of the migrants themselves and the American people. You see, most of the migrants get turned away at the southern U.S. border because they don't qualify for entry as refugees. Why? Well, it's because the majority of them are economic migrants, not actual refugees. They're coming for free U.S. welfare at the expense of U.S. citizens. Even worse, if People Without Borders actually cared about these migrants, then they would care about all of them, not just some of them. You see, these guided caravans, once they arrive at the U.S. southern border, cut in front of other migrants who've sometimes been waiting for over a week to gain legal entry. Further, the U.S. Border Patrol has reported that they've been arresting migrants traveling with the People Without Borders caravan who attempted to enter the United States illegally. Just as troubling, according to a Breitbart April 29th report, People Without Borders has been telling migrants that if they enter into marriages of convenience at the U.S. border, they're less likely to be separated and have a greater chance of entering in the United States. This appears to be a federal crime, pursuant to U.S. Code 8, subsection 1325, subsection C, which states in pertinent part, any individual who knowingly enters into a marriage for the purpose of evading any provision of the immigration laws shall be imprisoned for not more than 5 years or fined not more than $250,000 or both. So at its most basic level, People Without Borders is smuggling migrants on a large scale to the U.S. southern border. Then once there, they're enabling these migrants using a combination of sham marriages and illegal entry to enter the United States. Not only does this appear to be a federal crime under U.S. law, even worse, People Without Borders and the mainstream media have been constantly reporting on the suffering these migrants have endured during the grueling trip to the U.S. border. However, what no one admits is that all of this migrant suffering is 100% avoidable. You see, every country in Central America has a U.S. embassy, where these migrants can apply for a visa without having to suffer the hardships that illegally traveling from their country to the U.S. border requires. Further, even if a trip was required, the countries of Belize, Costa Rica, and Panama are all relatively stable places that these people can request refugee status. So People Without Borders, through its manipulation of migrants to get them to travel to the United States, is actually responsible for the migrant suffering the mainstream media is reporting on. There is no ethical reason to manipulate innocent people to leave their home and illegally travel to the U.S. border. It unnecessarily puts men, women, and children at risk of being raped, robbed, or killed, and everyone involved should be arrested and criminally charged for trafficking in human suffering for political gain. If you've enjoyed this video, found it educational or insightful, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. And don't forget to hit the bell so that hopefully you'll be notified when I upload new content. However, the best way to ensure you don't miss any of my content is to periodically check my channel. You can also follow me on gabsandminds.com. In addition, you can support my work on Patreon. And in case I'm targeted by YouTube, I mirror all my content on bitchute.com. You can also find me at misandrytoday.com. All the links are in the description. I'm DDJ, and this has been your dose of Misandry Today.